Alright, so we're going to do the light strike video. We're going to cover some methods that you can use to fix it. I'm going to refer to some other videos as far as disassembly, and going to show a couple emergency tricks if you absolutely positively have to make sure that round goes off. I apologize for any noise in the background. I'm outside today. I'm using a new camera mount, something that's not attached to me, so we'll see whether that works or not, and we'll go from there. Okay, so you're going to take off your back strap. You're going to leave everything assembled. If you do need to take it out, there is a video for removing and replacing the back spring, or the mainspring, excuse me. What often happens for the misfires to happen is your safety, which is normally here, again reference the video where we took it out, but you want to first of all make sure, if your light strikes are happening, that the safety is not catching it. Okay, if the safety is catching it, you're going to file these two edges of the slot. Doesn't affect the safety in any way. All it does is it makes a bigger clearance so that when it's in the fire position, it gives the hammer a place to go without it hitting inside of there. And the way you want to confirm that is just remove your safety altogether, take it out and shoot it. Obviously, you're going to transport it, unload it when you take it to the range, put everything in, don't drop it, etc. Is observe the safety precautions that you need to with a single action without a safety. Okay, so now that's out of the way, you're going to just basically fire. And if you're not having any light strikes at that point, that is the first fix that you would need to do. So let's say you've done that and you've removed the safety, you're still getting light strikes. What's happening? What's likely happening is your mainspring is possibly, if it's a new gun, it's not making contact with the hammer. Your mainspring being right here, okay, that it's not long enough, which it happens. So if that's the case, order yourself another spring. You need another spring. But in the meantime, if you need your gun to work, what you want to do is, and I'm going to take a measurement so you can see this. My prior vocation was a blacksmith, so moving metal. Okay, so that is our measurement there. So we'll lock that in. Okay, so what you're going to do, you make sure that I can actually see this, you can see this. What you're going to do is you're going to elongate the spring. And to do so, you're going to what's called cold forging. I'm using a different hammer than what is in the gunsmithing kit, just out of familiarity. Again, this is what I did for 30 years. So anyway, you're going to hit the sides, light taps, working your way all the way down. Start from about here, say 3/4 of an inch back, and just lightly tap it on a hard surface. You can use the anvil that's on a vise, which you probably can't see down there. Okay, you can use a small anvil like I am. You can use just a metal block. You can use really anything that's a hard surface. For an emergency anvil, I've used a hammer face as my anvil face, particularly sledgehammers. But anyway, we're just going to do this and elongate it a little bit. So I turned it over. I'm working it down. You don't want to hit it hard because this is been tempered and it's spring tempered. So it has a heat treat to it. So you don't want to crack it. Again, this is a fix, but you want to be able to make use of ordering a new part. Okay. After you've done this, say a few times, you've moved the metal forward this way. So now what you're going to do is you're going to elongate the tip. And at any time when you're dealing with the spring, you don't want to hit it when it's like this, and you always want to move it to where it's flat. And just hit the tip. And again the sides. Again the sides. And the tip. And you'll feel the metal actually moving, and if you hold it up you'll see that it's moving. So what we did is we didn't really change the shape so much. We just made it a little bit thinner. Sorry for the angles there. See, squished down a little bit thinner than the rest. Now all that did is it moved it so that we have some extra length on it. So now, now if we go to measure, we got it. I should have left my measurement on. We got a little bit longer. There we go. Got a little bit longer. So you're going to continue to do that. You're going to place everything back in after you've elongated it. You don't have to have a measuring device to do it. You'll be able to physically see that it's moved. You might have made it too long. So if you did, this is tempered enough to where you can use a file on it. A diamond file honestly would be best. You can use a stone if you're just removing a little bit of material. If you have it too long, what's going to happen is it's going to push against the hammer sear, and it's going to lock everything up. So you're going to take everything back out, take your spring back out, and you're just going to remove material a little bit at a time, say about 3 or 4 swipes. The closer you get, put your gun back together. And by the way, this is why gunsmiths charge so much, is because it's tedious work to take everything apart and then refit it, take everything apart, refit it, so forth and so on. But anyway, you want your spring to be fairly flat so that it fits up into the notch. So anyway, you've made it longer. Now it's reaching. You pull it back, and now it's got enough spring tension on it to where it's hitting. Okay, so that's one way to fix it. Another way to fix it is give it, for instance, on my wife's gun. So when I changed out the hammer for a new gold hammer, I noticed from the oil and the grease that it's actually hitting right here. And to show that, I'm just going to use a little bit of soapstone. You can do the same thing on yours by using some chalk, but basically you just work it back and forth, and as you can see where the soapstone is removed, it's hitting that area. So, and if you look, you can actually see it's going all the way over to one side and hitting on this side. So how we change that is show you. It can be moved over. See, now we got a gap. So how do we do that permanently? The way that we do that permanently is you can make spacers. And I'm just going to give a little example. Usually you do this with a say like a Coke can. You can make a spacer. I don't drink soda, so I don't have one available to me to use, but you can certainly do that out of any beverage can. What I do is I buy sheet brass or sheet aluminum to whatever size it is that I need, and I do it like that. But we're moving that over. So what I did is I went and I punched the spacer material. This happens to be a cutting mat, like from Walmart. They're like $1, or not a cutting mat, a placemat, an eating placemat, and they're not very thick, but they're really rather strong and resilient. Okay, and so I used a cheap set of punches from Harbor Freight. They're about $8 or so. I may be wrong on that price based on the fact that I think I bought those like a number of years ago. But anyway, so I did my first one. Try to get it over here where you can see it. I punched out my first hole, and these don't have to be perfectly centered and all that. If you wanted it perfectly centered, you can put it in a drill press, punch the first one, change out to another punch, and do it again in the same place, and you'll have a perfect one every time. So anyway, you have your spacer. Let's see if we can find her. There it is. And whoa, you're just going to put it on the side where it's needed. Put your spacer through, put everything back together. After you put it back together, don't tighten it down real heavy. Put some oil, grease, whatever in there, and then it will move your hammer over. And just at catching on that one side will slow your hammer down enough to do light strikes. Another thing is hammer thicknesses, or excuse me, rim thicknesses can cause issues. I think somebody mentioned that their 22 long rifle cases, the primers were going off just fine, but their Magnum wasn't. Well, that can have to do with the cylinder itself. So what you would do with that is the same thing. You're going to use like a Coke can, and you're going to make your little spacer again. And again, the reason to get the full kit from Harbor Freight or a million other places is so that you can do it to the various sizes, like your trigger pin and all that is different. But anyway, what's happening a lot of times is that the cylinder that you got might be off a couple thousandths or whatever, and it's not pushing back hard enough or far enough on the on the firing pin. It's not close enough to it. So what you do is you put a little end shake spacer in there, and it pushes back, and it gives more, just a little bit more room for it to hit the primer. So that's another thing that you can do. Another area that causes issues is the firing pin itself. So the area, get in here, see if I can turn on the light there. There you go. Okay, you can see there's a little bit of metal shavings and stuff in there. Turn off the light. And what what that you want to do, with that is like a pipe cleaner or air compressor, squirt it out with WD-40, whatever. Just clean it out pretty good. That might be stopping your firing pin from hitting stuff. So in another video, I show you how to take out your firing pin if all the other things turn out not to happen. But anyway, so you're hitting your firing pin. You can see it doesn't come out that much. It doesn't protrude that much. So you want to make sure you're looking at your firing pin, and you want to make sure that it's not deformed. It should look basically like this, a little bit rounded, not too rounded, not flat. You want to take the spring out, you want to put it through the hole, and you want to look at it, and you want to see that it's like this, flat cone shaped. So anyway, emergency measures to do. One of the things you can do as an emergency thing, if you absolutely positively have to have your gun work, is you're going to take brass. You can use aluminum. You use a piece of wood, although I wouldn't advise it. Plastic, again, I wouldn't advise it because they deform. But anyway, you're going to cut a piece. You're going to take that piece. Do it from the back side here. You're going to take that piece and you're going to wedge it right down in here. Your mainspring may be weak from being used many times, and what this does is it allows the spring to go up, puts more tension on it. Sorry about the angles here. Puts more tension on it and has it so that it will make contact with the sear and so forth. It's a short-term fix. It's not going to last forever. Being soft metal, wear it down. You don't want to use a piece of steel if you can get away with it in here to do that, because you're going to wear on the frame. It's only a zinc derivative. And you don't want to leave even brass or aluminum or whatever in there long term, because it's going to do the same thing. It's going to wear down the frame. Then when you get your new part, it's not going to line up or fit properly. So again, short-term emergency fix, but you can make your gun work. Why is an emergency fix needed? The emergency fixes needed is if you absolutely have to, say, make meat, which means that you have to hunt and absolutely have to get something to eat. That's one reason. Defense, that should just be no explanation. You might just need your gun to absolutely work, no matter what. So that will work. Another thing that you can do, and always with any of this, okay, you've done your fix, go ahead and try it for a few rounds before you depend your life, etc. on it. Another thing you can do is to absolutely make sure that you have full contact and it's coming out all the way. So you can take a glue gun and just take a drop of glue, hot glue, and put it on there. It elongates this. It makes sure that you have contact with the hammer, and it will go off. Absolute emergency situation. I mean, absolute emergency situation, and you would need to make sure that you go ahead and you replace after the fact. And that is, you can clip one coil off the spring. This is not a long-term fix. This is an absolute emergency. You have to do this to survive, basically. Remove that one coil with a pair of wire cutters, and what that is going to do is that's going to make you protrude and put the tension down on that much less, so that you are definitely going to make strike. But again, you do that, you're only going to get X amount of shots out of it before it permanently sticks, and then you have a dangerous situation. So it's not something I'm going to say again long term. These are emergency things. Why discuss emergency things? I think one of the posters had mentioned that he's in Alaska, in a very small remote area. You can't just run down to Walmart and go get ammo when you run out. You might get stuck where you only have ammo left for your 22 Rough Rider. It can happen. You might only have 2 guns and your other gun's disabled and you can't fix it. And this one's wonky, and you have to make sure that you're absolutely positively not going to miss, or misfire, that is, with your pistol, to make sure that you can eat until the supply train comes back. These are situations that people around the world sometimes find themselves in. So that's why I'm mentioning these emergency fixes that are not long term. They are dangerous. They do come with a caveat that they can ruin parts, and I don't advise doing them. Just like in the video where I'm talking about taking it out, this is the most difficult thing to do, is removing the firing pin assembly, the cup, the spring, and the firing pin. Is they're a pain to remove, and I don't suggest doing them unless you absolutely have to. But if you've tried all the hammer spring tricks and nothing else is working, move on to the firing pin. If not anything else, just make sure that hole's clean, because a lot of time it's not. Have the things on hand to do these things ahead of time. Spacers are never a bad thing to have. I use spacers on all my guns because I found they're all different. They everything wants to sit in a different place. So I found it makes them more reliable. You can certainly buy spacer materials for end shake, etc. I don't remember the name of the company, but all you have to do is put it into a search engine. I also thought I'd add, to make your spacer material, if you absolutely had nothing else, you can take a spent casing and you can cut it open. If only using a pocket knife. If you score over and over and over and over again, you'll eventually break through. Same thing going around. You hold your pocket knife like so, and up against your finger like so. Okay, notice how I'm not touching anything. And you just go over and spin around and around and around. You're going to eventually score it to where you can break that off. And then the same thing if you're, I would put it on a stick or whatever, but you're just going to score a line over and over and over again, and then you have a flat piece of brass when you bend it out, and you can use that to make your spacer material. I've done a lot of stuff in the field, out in the middle of nowhere, to make emergency fixes and parts and things like that when it's been needed. I always carry a small jeweler's file. Usually have a stone of some kind, ceramic, 1000 grit, Arkansas stone, which is about 320, somewhere around there. And all these things you can do, and those are the limits of the tricks that I know to do. I had to make this video kind of rolling off the top of my head because I didn't want to have to edit and stuff. I've got, I don't know if you can tell, but I have a million other projects that I have to do today. And anyway, I hope this is helpful. I hope that this gives you a better understanding of the things that can cause issues. So to recap, your mainspring itself can be an issue. Your end shake here can be an issue, which, by the way, when you put that spacer in, you're going to want to use a feeler gauge and make sure. This is you can get these in any automotive store, Walmart, wherever. Auto parts section, hardware store. They're $10 and under. And anyway, you want to make sure that the cylinder gap for 22 is, and your cylinder gap is measured. Let's just fudge this out here. Your cylinder gap is measured with the hammer pulled all the way back, is measured right here, okay, in this area, right here, okay. You want in between 2 and 6 thousandths, no more than 6 thousandths, because you start having blowback of gases and so forth. No less than 2, because your cylinder is going to bind. Usually from Heritage, it will come anywhere from 4 to 11. I've had them all over the place. But anyway, if it's not quite reaching back enough, the hammer that is, to hit that cylinder, it's going to happen. And the last but not least, this is very important to mention: light strikes. It could very well be the ammo. That is the very first thing you should try if you have access. I mean, we live in a time right now where it's very, very hard to get a hold of any selection of 22 ammo, plus it's expensive. But sometimes the rims on these are very, very thick or very, very hard. And that's the reason why you're getting a light strike, is because everything else just isn't happening. So try switching ammo first and foremost before anything else. You might have 2 or 3 different kinds of ammo that it's not hitting, that are all the same brand, because they have all the same thickness. But if you've tried, say, up to 5 and you're not getting any different outcome, then go ahead, start messing with the hammer spring, yada yada yada. The best fix of all for the hammer spring is replace your hammer spring. Replace it. That's the easiest one to do. If it requires some fitting after the fact with a new one, sometimes that happens. Sometimes they're a little long. Very rarely have I had one that's too short, but sometimes they're too long. So a little bit of filing on the main surface, or stoning, and you're good to go. Let's see, anything else? Again, firing pin. Don't modify your firing pin unless you absolutely had to. In an emergency situation. Sure. But for just a fix to go down to the range when you have adequate access to parts off of eBay or whatever, no, just buy another firing pin. If your cup's all oversized and stuff, is all beat up, or the holes, beyond the point of chamfering, which you can do with a countersink. You can chamfer this little hole right here from the top. There we go. You can get that chamfer in there to open up a little bit if it's all chewed up. But again, these things they're cheap and easy to replace. Unless you have a lot of experience, a bunch of measuring devices and originals to compare to, like let's say you have a second one, then don't be messing with the diameter of the hole and all the other things. Don't clip that coil and think that you're not going to do damage to your gun, to the firing pin, etc., and or have a dangerous situation to where you can have a unintentional discharge because now this thing's stuck out here, or it locks up your cylinder, etc. Don't do any of those things. But anyway, that is to say what you can do, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and what you might be forced to do. Always stay within your limitations, always stay within your lane as to what your knowledge is. But I'm just going to go ahead and give the caveat and say don't do any of this stuff unless you absolutely need to. If you do it, it's on you, and I take no responsibility. This is for informational purposes only. Regardless, God bless, and I hope this helps somebody. Take care. Have a great day.